If you are experiencing foundation issues, get a free estimate from Ox Foundations.
Welcome back in to Daybreak. Let's look at weather one more time before we get into our 7 o'clock segment this morning. It's all the way up to 35 degrees outside this morning. It feels like 35 degrees. It's very cloudy outside. It's going to become partly cloudy today. Weather brought to you by Radney Smith Funeral Home at 320 North Elm Street in Sylacauga. High today of 59, low of 38. Only a 5% chance of rain today. Tomorrow, 59 degrees for a high again. That's not too bad. Low of 46, that's nice. Wednesday, partly cloudy with a high of 65, a low of 54. Then Thursday, it continues to warm up, New Year's Eve. But we're going to have rain, a 75% chance of rain with a high of 67 and a low of 60 degrees. Friday, to get 2021 started off, we'll have 50% chance of rain with a high of 63. Friday evening, a low of 38 degrees. Going to start getting colder again. Weather brought to you by Radney Smith Funeral Home, located at 320 Elm Avenue in Sylacauga, Alabama. You're in tune with Daybreak. My name is Bob Green. I'm sitting in for Jimmy Dale today and tomorrow. Tell you again, you worried about him. He's not sick. He's okay. He just won't take a few more of the holidays off, and he's enjoying it. And I had nothing really else to do, so here I am. We're 30 more minutes this morning and a little while tomorrow morning. Have from a guest this morning and a very unusual subject, and most of the time I'm ready to talk. I've got a bunch of questions. I got everything lined up. I'm a little apprehensive this morning. Got with me Clara Curtis, and we're going to talk about New Year's resolutions. Good morning, Clara, and welcome to Daybreak.
Good morning, and it is early morning.
But like I said, resolutions, I really don't make resolutions mainly because, and I think you'll talk about this a little bit later, I hope. Mainly, I never kept them. If I got through January 2nd or 3rd without breaking mine, I was doing real good. Sort of like when Lent comes along, I try to.
You're certainly not alone, because that's what most people do. They've got good ideas about writing New Year's resolutions and goals for the year. And 2020 was not a good year to accomplish any goals because we were so disturbed, I guess is the word, with the virus and so forth. But it's a good thing to do goals and set some New Year's resolutions. But today I'd like to talk about why do we break them? Because you don't plan. You got to plan if you're going to have New Year's resolutions. Yep. And I literally get amazed at people who have 20 or 30 goals. I would never reach that. And so, therefore, today I'd like to talk about how many goals should you really come up with for the year and give it some serious thought. And I always do mine before the new year gets here.
Okay,
you know,
let me tell you what I had written down here.
Okay, let's hear it.
Do you make resolutions? Why? How many? And how do you decide what resolutions to make? And that's exactly what you just said.
I answered your questions before you gave them.
So we just go ahead and answer those questions. And Clara just...
well, I brought along with me to prove that I actually make goals. This is 2018, 2019, 2020 of my goals.
Did you keep them?
I did 18 and 19, but 20 I didn't, and I like to give an excuse for it. I think, like I said, the virus has just disrupted everybody's life. And so I'm not going to fuss at myself for not. I did accomplish a couple of them, but for 19 and 18, I did accomplish most all of them. I was real proud of them. And in 18, I had promised myself for nearly 30 years I was going to write a book, and I finally did. And for me, that was the ultimate, and I still probably am enjoying a little bit of that in my goal making.
How many resolutions should you make?
I actually suggest that if it's your first time to write some goals and objectives, that you only do 4, because you get overwhelmed if you've got a whole page of nothing that you're not going to accomplish, and that's the reason most people don't accomplish it, is simply because they are overwhelmed with 15, 20 goals and objectives. So I say the first time 4. Maybe if you're in the habit of it each year, then possibly do 6.
What should you consider in making a resolution?
Well, you know, most everybody, the first thing they want to say, excuse me for wiping my eyes this morning. I've got an allergy and it's really bothers me. The reason most people don't write goals is simply because they, in their mind, know that they hadn't accomplished it before. But I get tickled because that's the first thing they want to say is, I'm going to go on a diet. I'm going to go to the gym. And that is a personal goal. But before I go any farther, Bob, I'd like to say that writing down goals is my objective to get everybody to understand. And why do we write down goals? People say, well, I got it in my head. I know what I need to do. Well, if you do, how come you hadn't already done it? That's the way I feel. But when you write something down on paper, such as this, and you have to see it every day, it becomes crystallized, and you're more likely to accomplish it. And that's the reason I say make sure that you write down your goals.
I think I tried to do a little reading on this I could, and I think one of the things I found in reading that the reason we'll talk about why resolutions fail, the reason that they fail is you make them too big.
Right, you don't, and you don't describe. For instance, if you're going to lose weight, how are you going to lose weight? You know, what do you do to lose weight? And so on this card that I put, I always just note, I got an objective, which is number 1, but then I got an A, B, and C to go with it. And they say, oh, that's too technical. Not if you're only going to do 4, it's not. And you're going to do it so that, I put mine in my office where I have to look at it every day. I suggest you either put it where you go every day, and I can recall even putting them on my mirror in the bathroom because that's where I put my makeup on.
I have a friend, I don't mind telling his name is Caleb Halston. And he's very comical. He was a fraternity brother of mine. He actually changed the name of his bathroom from bathroom to gym. So he told everybody he went to the gym every day.
Well, that's one way of getting out of accomplishing any goals, that's for sure. But I really feel like that's probably the reason most people don't accomplish their goals that they're setting up for the year. But you got to think about the whole year. You got 2021, and that's a lot of days that you need to work. But you don't want to work on it every day unless you are on a diet. But how do you accomplish it? A, for instance, what do you do to lose a weight? Are you going to cut back on calories? Are you going to cut back on protein? Are you going to do the Atkinson diet or the New South Beach diet? You know, pick out what you're going to do and stick with just one. And if you don't accomplish it tomorrow, then you really accomplished half of your goal right there because you can't do it all in one day. So what was your other question you wanted to ask me about goals, Bob? You wrote down so many things.
Well, I didn't have many things. Why shouldn't you set a resolution?
Why
Is there a
shouldn't?
reason you shouldn't set them?
No, I think that, God gave us life, and He gave it abundantly for us to use, but we sometimes just stick to the same old thing all the time. Never think out of the box, never produce anything one year from the next year, and that's disheartening for you. You begin to get old, if you want to know the truth. It makes you old not to make your life spin a little bit.
You said earlier that planning has to come in just about everything you do.
Indeed it does.
If you want to be successful in business, you got to have a plan. You want to be successful in city government, they got to have a plan. You want to be successful, and you got to carry out the plan to be successful.
Right. You got to have, you got to have steps, I guess it might be, to accomplish something. And Bob, you're right about the fact that everybody has to have goals and objectives. If you don't, you're just out there spinning, and you wasted something that was very precious to you, and that's your life.
Well, what are the top 5 resolutions that people make, or the top 5 resolutions that you make?
Well, I won't give all 5 of them, but number 1 is I have a hard time accepting an embrace of love. You know, I think I've run off of, well, as a matter of fact, the doctor told me one time I run off of 220 instead of 110. So I found that was my number 1 goal last year, was just to stop and look at people that I associate with, because they all have needs and they all have objectives too. And I think in the past I just sort of breezed on through them and said, oh, well, that's nice, or that's nice. And you know, social media, we know everything, whether we want to or not. I can probably tell you what you had for dinner last night if I look on social media.
Not me, you wouldn't. You could, you could with a lot of people.
That's
but
right.
You're not going to find Bob Green many places on social media.
And you know, I think sometimes social media is what people do instead of accomplishing goals. It's a quick fix.
Well,
you get an appreciation for something. But the number 1 for me was to correct my feelings towards human beings, and to be able, and I've never had a problem with speaking out. That's not my problem. Maybe shutting my mouth would be the best one. But that was probably my number 1 goal last year. But like I said, most people want to think about a diet. Well, why do you want a diet? For good health, you know, to feel good. Write all of it down under the category of A, B, and C. And that way you will have it to look at and say, well, if it's my health I'm thinking about, maybe I need to take a vitamin or something. And before you do that, you got to research, and what should I take for the arthritis that I got in my spine, and so forth and so on. So I think that's probably my number 1 objective, is to study a little bit more about what I want instead of just slapping it on a piece of paper and saying, well, that's my goal for the year.
No, in researching this, I went online, and just about, you know, you Google top 5 or top 10 resolutions. I didn't find any of them that were any close to the same thing. Here's one that: save money, spend less, learn something new, quit smoking, read more, change jobs, drink less. The next one I came up, completely different. And this is supposed to be, I don't know who they serve. Exercise more, lose weight, get organized, learn a new hobby, live life to the fullest. The only one that looks like it was in both the lists, the 2 things, was save money and quit smoking. Now, if you don't smoke, then you hadn't got any money. You hadn't got any money, so you know it wouldn't be hard for me to
accomplish
to do either one of those.
Well, let's go back to that one that you said, exercise more. Where are you going to do exercise that you hadn't already done for the last 30 years? That's a question. I mean, you got to know how to do it. You got to lay out how to get there.
I guess, you know, we're talking personal this morning. I usually don't like to do that. But I guess if I had made a resolution for 2020, it was to exercise more, which I did. I went to the gym, and it wasn't a bathroom, but I went to the gym every day until this so-called stay at home. And every afternoon at 3 o'clock, I went over at Fort William on the gym and spent an hour. Hadn't been back since the pandemic, even though, because it became a habit.
I know what you're talking about. I made that same resolution. It's one I missed on here, was that I was going to work out more. Well, I did, and I had a very active schedule to do 3 days a week at the gym, and I did that and felt much better. But like you, when the pandemic came along, everybody said stay out of the gyms, and so I hadn't gone back, and I miss it. I really do.
Well, I understand that one of the gyms is fixing to open up a second branch to have more room. So a second building to have more room. So maybe we can get back. But one of the other things, and I know I'm putting my thoughts in here.
Well, it's your program.
Is I think the resolutions that people make, I'm going to quit eating chocolate, or I'm going to quit eating this, or I'm going to lose weight, that they make it too big, that they should do the little things, and maybe quit eating so much is to eat less. That
was what I wanted to emphasize the most to your listening audience this morning, is the fact that you can make all the goals you want to, but unless you decide to have a path to reach them, you'll never accomplish them. This time next year, you'll be sitting there wondering, why didn't I accomplish this? And write it down again. But that's the main point that I want to bring to everybody's attention, is to write your goal down. First of all, that crystallizes it. That's in your mind. You'll see it every day. You'll be more likely. You will not do it every day. I can promise you, you will not work at it every day. So it doesn't become boring, but you will at least be mindful of what you really want out of your life. And if it is better health, or if you want to, what were some of the others that you had? Finance, I think it was. How do you do better with finances? You got the same amount of money that you always had. You budget, and you write down. And I keep emphasizing the fact how important it is to write down your goals that you want to accomplish.
And I think the article I read was, rather than think big, think small in the things you want to do.
Yeah. You know, when in 2018, I told a moment ago that I wrote my book. The book was for me and my grandchildren, because I didn't want them to have to look up on Ancestry.com to figure out where I came from when I'm gone from here on Earth. So on January the 1st, I wrote that down, and on January the 1st, I started it. And by the end of May, I finished it. But I had a goal, and I had an objective, and I knew that I had to learn how to write a book, because I didn't know how. And so I went through those steps too.
Okay. That'd be a good subject of another morning.
Another thing. Oh, I can talk about all kinds of things. I told y'all I ran off for 220, not 110.
Well, I think I do too. So,
well,
but I never thought of it that way. But I maybe it slowed down to about some DC current now. I'm really operating slow now.
Well, if we care about our health, though, we got to have that necessary sleep, and that is something that a lot of people worry with, not getting enough sleep.
Well, let's start all over again. Why should you make resolutions?
Because it's your life, and you got 365 days out of a year to accomplish something, and why just exist in life? Why not go back and write some goals down, accomplish something in your life? And the reason you do it is because when you finish with one of your goals, you take a pen and you mark through it. And that is the grandest feeling you will ever have, that you accomplished one goal. And if that's all you accomplish in 2021, glory be for you, because you don't have to have a constant interaction of bad things all the time. You can just, it makes you feel good. It makes your self-esteem feel better. That you accomplished and got to mark it off. That's almost like celebration, I guess you call it.
How many resolutions should you make?
I haven't made mine yet, but I will have them ready by January the 1st, and I usually do 4.
How will you decide what resolutions to make?
Because it's my life. You couldn't help me, neither could anybody in the audience. It's my life. What do you want for your life? And B, if it's to have more money, for goodness sakes, write it down there. If it's to fall in love, write it down there. Don't be ashamed of your feelings. All you're doing is writing it down so you crystallize it and make it for real, that you have to look at it every day.
I guess from what I read, to make them small, change in small increments if you're going to change.
Right.
And don't try to do the impossible.
Now, that's true too. But the impossible will come if you will actually just work at crystallizing it, writing it down, having some objectives to go along with that big goal that you made. Remember that if you write number 1 down to exercise more, then write A, B, and C on how do I exercise more? What do I need to do that? And you'll accomplish it.
Been talking with Clara Curtis this morning about New Year's resolutions, a very unusual subject. And
well, it's once a year.
Once a year subject, and Clara and I have talked quite a bit, and I've been interviewed by her on when she had her radio show, and I appreciate you being on there. And Clara, I appreciate you being on this morning, and I'm sure that if I'm back on Jimmy Dale again, we can get back on, and there are quite a few subjects you and I can talk about.
Yeah, when you run off of 220, you have a lot of things going on in life, but please don't let age be the reason you write a goal down, because age is something that's on a birth certificate, and I want to emphasize this so much. Do not say, well, I'm just old, I can't do that. No, you're not too old to ever start anything. Bob started to the gym, and you can look at him and tell he's old.
Well, I started this when I was, quote, old.
Well, that's...
I got into communications after I retired from my initial business. So, but still, been talking with Clara Curtis. Clara, thank you for getting up this morning and getting out. It's been a pleasure talking to you about New Year's resolution.
And I hope your listening audience appreciates what we've said today, and certainly set some goals. And it'll be great at the end of 2021 if somebody just come and say, I set one goal and I reached it, and I want you to know about it.
Well, maybe we could accomplish the purpose of anything except commercials on radio and television. What's between is just to keep you listening for the commercials that come up and pay the bills, right?
Yes, I think so.
I think that's the only reason we're sitting here. And we'll be back with more after these commercials.